What is the difference between a product goal and a sprint goal? A product goal is a longer term objective that gives the Scrum team something to focus on, future state for the product, knowing that the product can be a service or something tangible. You might even think of it as a release, but releasing is really a whole different conversation potentially. Sprint goals then are smaller objectives that focus the Scrum team on advancing towards that overall goal. Let's take an example of holding a conference. That conference might be 2 to 3 months from now, but that is our product goal. Sprint goals then focus the Scrum team on what we need to do to advance towards reaching that final objective. For example, in our first sprint, we might have standing up some sort of homepage with base information. We don't need to include all that information into the goal. That's what the product backlog items are for. And subsequently, the sprint backlog items, when we talk about how we're going to do it, we can still release that homepage because it's valuable information to our potential attendees. Our second sprint might have an objective about announcing the speakers or announcing who's going to be presenting at the conference. Still valuable information that we could be giving to our potential attendees. Now, think about this. If you don't have a sprint goal, what kind of dysfunctions might you see? Firstly, some teams will say things to you like, isn't the sprint goal just getting all this stuff done? No, that is not a cohesive objective that pulls the Scrum team together. The second thing that might be a dysfunction indicator is if people are each taking a product backlog item. You might call those user stories. In the Scrum framework, we simply refer to them as product backlog items. So instead of working together, you have people working on disparate things and not necessarily talking to each other about those. One person, one item, or one person, one user story, which isn't intended. That leads to the dysfunction in your daily Scrum, where you devolve it into some sort of status report. Here's what I'm working on. Yesterday I worked on this. Today I'm working on that. No, but that is not a daily Scrum giving transparency into where we're at on our sprint goal. So let's go back to our conference example. If our sprint goal is in fact having a ready homepage by the end of this sprint, and we do have the Scrum team working together in an ordered manner on our sprint backlog during the sprint, daily Scrum would sound something like, towards our sprint goal of having a ready homepage, I'm totally on track. I'm tossing the ball to my teammate. Now we can just hear short and sweet where people are on track or not on track. Because maybe somebody says, I'm not on track. I tried to put this animation on the page and I'm getting this weird error. I could say, I can help you with that. Let's get together after. So when we don't have a sprint goal, the Scrum team kind of goes off into these little solo islands unto themselves and forgets that they're a cohesive unit trying to work together, which is the whole point of Scrum. So some tips for you to take Scrum Master: talk at the beginning of sprint planning about why this sprint? Why is it valuable? What are the stakeholders going to get a result of this sprint? See if you can pull people together for some sort of an objective. And if it's really impossible, I would ask, what's the most important thing? What's the most important thing that we need done this sprint? Secondly, ensure that the order of the product backlog items that we talked about during refinement don't go out the window once we get into sprint planning. So we still want to have an ordered sprint backlog. And thirdly, listen for your team members talking about working with each other, talking about working together to come up with their plan, which is also called the sprint backlog, for delivering on that sprint goal, instead of seeing people being assigned one product backlog item per person or one user story per person. Hopefully, these tips will help you get your sprint goal back on track.